In this video, I'm going to explain how to integrate both sine to the third of x and sine to the fourth of x. We'll start with sine to the third of x because it is a little bit easier. The first thing we're going to do is change this into sine of x times sine squared of x. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this identity right here and we are going to rearrange it to solve for sine squared. So sine squared theta will equal 1 minus cosine squared theta, and that is what we're going to substitute into this integral. So we're now going to have the integral of sine of x times 1 minus cosine squared of x dx. Now if we distribute the sine, we're going to have the integral of sine of x dx, and at the same time we're going to split it into two separate integrals. Sine of x times cosine of x, the quantity squared dx. Now the reason I'm writing it this way is because I am now going to use a u substitution for the right-hand integral. The first integral is done. The antiderivative of sine is negative cosine. And then for the second integral, we are going to do a u substitution, and I always do that in red. So we're going to come down here. We're going to say that u is the inner function, which is cosine, and du would be the derivative of that, which is negative sine of x dx, which I have, except for the negative. So I'm going to put a negative here and a negative outside, which will turn the outside into a positive. And now I can do a u substitution. This and this is my du, and the rest of it is u squared. So now when I integrate that, this is going to become 1/3 u to the third plus c. And so the final answer for this problem will be the negative cosine of x plus 1/3 u, which is also cosine of x, to the third plus c. And that can also be written as negative cosine of x plus 1/3 cosine cubed of x plus c. And that is the answer to this one. So that one is finished. All right. For the next problem, which is the integral of sine to the fourth of x dx, we're going to have to break this into sine squared and sine squared. So this will be sine squared of x times sine squared of x. Now if we change those both to 1 minus cosine squared, we're not going to be getting anywhere. We're just going to change the whole problem back into cosine to the fourth, which is not going to make life that much easier. So what we need to do is use a different formula, and in this case we're going to use a double angle formula. So I'm going to take a look at this here equal to that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this formula and we're going to solve it for sine squared. And the way we're going to do it to make life a lot easier is we're just going to switch these two terms. This moves over and turns negative. The sine squared moves to the left and turns positive. So it's going to be 2 sine squared of a equals 1 minus cosine of 2a. Dividing both sides by 2 is the same as multiplying by 1/2. So I'm going to write a 1/2 out front. And I get this right here. Sine squared a equals 1/2 times 1 minus cosine of 2a. Now I can integrate 2a, but I can't integrate squared. So we write it in the integral as 1/2 bracket 1 minus cosine of 2x, the entire quantity squared dx. The 1/2 squared is 1/4, and I'm just going to pull it out of the integral. So now I need to multiply 1 minus cosine 2x times itself. And when I do, I'm going to get 1/4 integral 1 minus 2 cosine 2x plus cosine squared of 2x dx. And that is just multiplying the two brackets together. I can integrate 1. I can integrate this with a u substitution. I cannot integrate this yet, but I will come back to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is split this into 3 separate integrals. 1/4 integral of 1 dx minus 1/4 integral of 2 cosine 2x dx plus 1/4 integral cosine squared of 2x dx. 1/4 integral of 1 is just 1/4 x minus, now here I need to do a u substitution with this inner function. Now if you can skip over u substitution, that's fine. You do not have to do it. If you can do it in your head is what I mean. It's not necessary that you do it. So u equals 2x, du equals 2 dx, which I happen to have. I have exactly what I need. So this is going to be 1/4 integral cosine of u du. So now I can go back to x's. This will be 1/4 sine of u, and u is 2x. That one's done. Okay, now for this one, we have to continue doing some changes. So I've got the integral of cosine squared of 2x. Now forget about the fact that it's 2x right now. We're looking at, instead of the 2 that I have underlined right now, I am looking at this one and this one because it's a cosine squared. So now what I'm going to do is take those two. Cosine of 2a equals 2 cosine squared a minus 1. I'm going to solve for cosine squared. So I get cosine of 2a plus 1 equals 2 cosine squared. Multiply both sides by 1/2. And you get cosine squared of a. All right. Now here's where it gets a little weird. In this case, a is 2x. So I'm going to modify this to say cosine squared of 2x is what I want to change it to. So everywhere I see an a, I've got to change it to 2x. So this is 1/2 bracket cosine of 2 times 2x plus 1. So this is 1/2 bracket cosine of 4x plus 1 is what this equals. So now I can change this to 1/2 bracket cosine of 4x plus 1 dx. I can bring the 1/2 out. That would be 1/8 integral cosine 4x plus 1 dx, which I can now integrate as well. Now I am going to break this one apart. I will have 1/8 integral cosine of 4x dx plus 1/8 integral of 1 dx. The cosine of 4x needs a u substitution for the 4x. That's a 4 dx. So a 4 goes there, and a 1/4 goes outside. So this will be 1/32 integral. This is du, and the rest is cosine of u. Now I can go ahead and integrate this last part. 1/8, the integral of 1 is just x. And I'm at the end of my integral, so it's going to be a plus c at the very end. Now I can actually finish this problem. I have 1/4 x minus 1/4 sine of 2x plus 1/32. Be careful, the antiderivative of cosine is sine. And I'm going to go ahead and change u back to x, which in this case is 4x plus the 1/8 x plus c. Now there are some like terms here that if you need to combine them that you can. I have 1/4 x plus 1/8 x is 3/8 x minus 1/4 sine of 2x plus 1/32 sine of 4x plus c, and there is your answer.